Hello, I'm Nicholas Bugash, and I'm going to show you why the 444 Marlin rifle and cartridge are the best for straight wall cartridge, deep woods, big game hunting. I noticed my Marlin stock needed refinishing at the end of last hunting season, and I was curious how long it took to accumulate those scratches. I was surprised to find I'd been using that 444 for 33 years, but not surprised that it had become a favorite hunting rifle of mine. Being an old guy has its downsides, but the passing years allow one to try many things and learn from their experiences. Today I will share some of what I've learned. Now, I don't claim to be the most expert shooter and hunter, but I want you to know that I'm not just guessing about what I present. Here's some of my experience. I've been big game hunting for 46 years, and during that time I've been fortunate to have taken antelope, white-tailed deer, mule deer, Rocky Mountain elk, mountain goat, and greater kudu. I was a licensed guide in Montana for deer, black bear, and elk hunts. I had a firearms business for 16 years, and that gave me the opportunity to fire a wide variety of rifles and cartridges for accuracy and to compare how they performed on game. I've personally taken medium and big game using 20 gauge rifle slug, 223 Remington, 270 Winchester, 30-30 Winchester, 308 Winchester, 30-06 Springfield, 300 Win Mag, 44 Mag, and 444 Marlin. Why discuss the 444 Marlin now? I believe that many myths have made the 444 underappreciated. The 444 is an outstanding deep woods hunting cartridge. Many hunters have not tried the 444, and now many states have introduced new regulations allowing straight wall cartridges for big game hunting. And there's a renewed interest in lever action rifles and a rebirth of the Marlin company. As I mentioned, I think that shooter acceptance of the 444 Marlin rifle and cartridge has been hampered by persistent myths that have been repeated over and over by expert gun writers who likely have little or no actual experience with the 444 on the range and in the hunting fields. Let's go through the 444's development and introduction history, and then look at the misleading 444 myths versus reality. We'll discuss why Marlin developed a 444, 444 accuracy, 444 ballistics, and 444 performance on medium and big game. Let's dismiss these misleading myths perpetrated by various gun writers over the years that I believe have kept the 444 Marlin from being appreciated as much as it should. The 444 Marlin is just a lengthened 44 Magnum handgun cartridge. 444 is not very useful for most hunting because it's a short to medium range cartridge. Lever action rifles are not capable of good accuracy because they had two-piece stocks and rear locking bolts. They wrote that the 444 cannot shoot lead bullets accurately, cannot shoot heavy bullets accurately. The 444 Marlin's rainbow trajectory makes it useless beyond the shortest ranges. That it's not powerful enough for big tough game. It just wasn't sufficient for big game, but may be useful for deer and black bear at short ranges. Overall, these myths gave the impression that the cartridge was thrown out as an afterthought and doesn't provide much useful performance. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let's dispel the myth that the 444 Marlin is just a lengthened 44 Magnum handgun cartridge. Some describe the 444 Marlin as just a lengthened 44 Magnum handgun cartridge. These writings can convey the impression that the cartridge is just an afterthought, sort of a random idea that it's nothing special and serves no particular purpose. The reality is that the 444 Marlin is an excellent, purpose-built rifle and cartridge combination. Let's explore the 444's development. Marlin developed the 444 as the most powerful lever-action rifle capable of taking the largest North American game. It was developed as a brainchild of Thomas Robinson and Arthur Burns, Martin's Director of Research and Development and metallurgist, respectively. The 444 cartridge case was developed from an unfinished 30-06 caliber case that was drawn straight but without the head finished so that it could be turned with an extractor rim rather than a rimless cannular. These facts are from the official Marlin firearms history. Why did they start with a 30-06 case? The 30-06 Springfield and Cartridge were developed for trench warfare at the turn of the 20th century. The rifle sight was calibrated to 2,700 yards. Its performance goal was to incapacitate a 150 to 200-pound soldier at 1,000 yards and beyond. Marlin adapted this cartridge case to make the most powerful lever-action rifle for woods hunting. The 30-06 case held a lot of power to propel a relatively small diameter and long bullet for long ranges. What if that case mouth was expanded as far as possible to hold a much larger diameter and heavier bullet? Let me help you visualize what they did. The inverted 30-06 casing placed in a 444 case makes a mirror image. The 444 is not just a lengthened 44 Magnum handgun case, but instead started as a long-range rifle case. They placed the largest diameter bullet, 430 caliber, that would fit in the expanded case mouth. The larger bullet would lose some missile-like aerodynamic shape to travel over 1,000 yards and replace it with a much larger frontal area striking the target. The 444's bullet has nearly twice the frontal area striking the target as the 30 caliber it replaced, and it's much heavier to deliver its energy at the close to medium ranges of deep woods hunting. To adapt the cartridge to a different hunting purpose. Marlin wanted to make an optimal cartridge for practical big game hunting ranges in the short to medium range category, that is roughly 0 to 200 yards. Now, different diameter bullets in this case made the 25-06 Remington, the 270 Winchester, 338-06, and 35 Whelen. The 444's 430 diameter bullet was the largest that could fit in this case. This table from Marlin's official firearms history clearly shows the 444's design purpose. It shows the rifle and cartridge effective range. Marlin listed the 444's maximum effective range as 200 yards. Of all the medium and big game cartridges they chambered, it was the only one listed for the largest game, moose and elk. Now, before the 4570 fans object, note that the factory loads available then were the lower powered loads for the older guns like the Trapdoor Springfield. Another myth is the 444 is not very useful for most hunting because it's a short to medium range cartridge. Why did Marlin develop a cartridge for hunting at these ranges? Because many hunters find most of the shots occur at these short to medium ranges. Over 40 years ago, in my early hunting years, I kept records of the distance of every animal shot and the bullet performance. I stopped keeping regular records after I'd taken 38 medium and big game animals. I don't know how many head I've taken exactly, but it's likely near 100 now. I can only recall 7 instances where the shots were over 200 yards. And these were while hunting open country with rifles and cartridges adapted to long-range shooting. I have never missed an opportunity at game when hunting deep woods because it was out of 444 range. Let's consider realistic woods big timber hunting ranges. I've placed markers the height of a deer's body in the woods at 50, 100, 150, and 200 yards. The 50-yard marker is clearly visible to the naked eye, but the 100-yard marker is less easy to see. Turning up the magnification to a scoped rifle view, the 50-yard marker is sharp, and the 100-yard marker is now easier to see. but where are the 150 and 200-yard markers? The close spacing of the trees blocks them from view. It's possible that you may catch a big game animal in a meadow or a plowed field, but for most of the shots offered to a deep woods big timber hunter, a 200-yard range is plenty. Let's consider another myth. The .444 Marlin rifle and cartridge have limited popularity because it isn't an effective combination. Why wasn't the .444 more popular at the time of its 1964 introduction? Gun writers reflected the sales trends of the time. This article, titled "The Year of the $300 Sporter" in a 1965 Field and Stream edition, is typical. Hunters were told they needed maximum velocity to harvest game. New Magnum cartridges holding lots of powder were chambered in bolt-action rifles. The style trend had long barrels to allow Magnum powder to burn, and Monte Carlo cheek pieces, ebony fore-end tips, and grip caps were all the rage. And lever-action rifles and cartridges like the 30-30, 35 Reming, and 45-70 did just not have the accuracy and power for hunting deer beyond 50 yards. Then, about 20 years later, as the cowboy action shooting sport developed, more shooters began to appreciate once again just how handy and accurate these lever-action rifles actually were. I tried 30-30, 356 Winchester, .444 Marlin, and 45-70 Marlin lever-action rifles. All could group less than 1.5 inches at 100 yards, and the .444 Marlin displayed amazing accuracy. The expert gun writers copied one another and repeatedly claimed lever-action rifles cannot shoot accurately, .444 Marlin cartridge is not accurate, the .444 Marlin cannot shoot heavy bullets accurately.
My firearms business and a concrete benched range 7 miles from my shop gave me the opportunity to test many rifle types and cartridges. I was surprised to find that the statements about lever gun accuracy did not hold when it came to the Marlin rifles. The 30-30, 356 Winchester, .444 Marlin, and 45-70 Marlin lever action rifles that I shot could all make 3-shot groups less than 1.5 inches at 100 yards. And the .444 Marlin displayed amazing accuracy.
Here are some example .444 Marlin groups I fired recently. The cutting-edge 240 grain solid copper flat point groups right at 1 inch. The Hornady 265 grain flat point load gives 1.1 inch groups. The 280 grain Swift A-frame gave 1.1 inches, and the 300 grain Hornady XTP came in at 0.8 inches. Reality destroys the myth that the traditional Marlin lever action is inherently inaccurate and that the .444 cannot shoot heavy bullets. It is very accurate and can shoot heavy bullets accurately. Yet another myth the experts repeated is the .444's rainbow trajectory makes it useless beyond the shortest ranges. Bullet trajectory is important in a hunting situation because the hunter may be presented a shot for only a moment, and the ability to aim and hit vitals without having to compensate for bullet drop can help bring game to the table. Let's compare the trajectory of some current straight wall hunting cartridges. The table compares the trajectory curve of the .444 Marlin to the 350 Legend and the 4570 Government. The loads used are all Hornady FTX factory loads. They are all for a scoped rifle with the rifle bore 1.5 inches below the scope crosshair line of sight, and all the loads are sighted to strike 2 inches high at 100 yards. Notice the .444 has the least drop after the bullets pass 100 yards. The 350 Legend drops 1.2 times as much, and the 4570 drops 1.8 times as much, a full 2.7 inches more drop. The trajectory curves for these loads are shown on the right. The .444 is the upper flatter green curve. The 350 Legend is the yellow curve, and the 4570 is a red curve at bottom. The 444 offers the flattest trajectory of these straight case cartridges. Now, how does this help you in short to medium range deep woods hunting? Let's take a look. This is the heart of a 140-pound whitetail buck set on paper with 1-inch grid lines. I'm going to draw the heart outline so that we can see how the trajectories of these cartridges affect our ability to hit it when we aim at our deer. When we aim at the buck's heart with the 444, the bullet hits the top of the heart at 100 yards with our 0. At 200 yards, with the same aiming point, the 3.5-inch drop has the bullet hitting the bottom of the heart. We can aim at the center of the buck's heart and hit it at any range out to 200 yards. Using the same point of aim with the 350 Legend, the bullet hits the top of the heart at 100 yards, but at 200 yards, the bullet passes just a little beneath the heart. Using the same point of aim with the 4570, the bullet hits the top of the heart at 100 yards, but at 200 yards, the bullet passes about 2 inches under the heart. The 444 offers a very flat trajectory for deep woods hunting ranges. The flatter trajectory of the 444 makes it easier for the hunter to put his bullet where it counts, whether it's longer shot or having to place their bullet through a narrow opening in the brush. The expert gun writers repeated the 444 is adequate for deer and maybe black bear. Let's study the 444's power for big game hunting. Marlin Firearms official history states, the Model 444 rifle was introduced in 1965 having a 24-inch barrel and was the most powerful lever-action rifle on the market with more than 1.5 tons of energy at the muzzle. It was designed for hunting any North American game. We've seen how the flatter trajectory of the 444 helps you to hit the game's vital areas, but what happens when that bullet hits the game? This table compares the kinetic energy, the striking force, of the same 3 factory loads whose trajectories we studied. The 444 delivers greater striking energy at the muzzle and continues to deliver greater energy over its 200-yard design range and beyond. This graph presents the table's energy numbers and makes it easy to compare the energy values over the ranges out to 250 yards. You can get a sense of the power the 444 delivers by comparing it to some popular cartridges which many shooters are familiar with. Europeans often name cartridges by stating the bullet diameter and case length in millimeters to give an indication of the total bullet size and the amount of powder propelling it. Let's look at the 444 Marlin this way and compare it to 2 well-known NATO cartridges. Here's the 5.56 by 4.5, also called the 223 Remington, that is loaded in the AR-15, Mini-14, and similar rifles. Millions of shooters fire more millions of this round and are familiar with its power. The 7.62 by 5.1, also known as the 308 Winchester, holds more powder to push a larger bullet than the 5.56 by 4.5. If you fired both cartridges, you know that the 7.62 by 5.1 is a big step up in power. Now compare the 444 Marlin to these two. It would be called the 10.9 by 5.7 in the European method. The 444 Marlin cartridge has a lot more powder, propelling a much heavier bullet. Considering this, you can believe that the 444 delivers the short to medium range performance its designers intended. It packs a tremendous wallop. Let's take a look at some bullet options for the 444. Remington introduced the 444 with a 240 grain jacketed soft point. Another myth may be that this was a handgun bullet. Remington still loads it, and many shooters report success with it. Heavier bullets were available for the 444 when I started shooting it, and as a meat hunter, I prefer heavier bullets at lower velocities because they kill cleanly while damaging less meat, and usually exit, producing a better blood trail if needed for tracking. My experience is that velocities above 2,600 feet per second produce a lot of bloodshot meat. Some states require lead-free bullets, and the cutting-edge 240 grain flat point fills that need. Machined from copper, it weighs less than a lead bullet of the same length and can be driven to velocities that generate energy for tremendous bone-breaking penetration. Hornady developed a 265 grain jacketed soft point bullet especially for the 444, and this bullet has proven very effective on medium to the largest North American game for decades. They currently load it in their super performance ammo. The Swift 280 grain A-frame jacketed hollow point offers rapid initial expansion and deep penetration desirable for the largest game. The Hornady 300 grain XTP bullet was developed for handgun velocities that the 444 will slow to after about 125 yards. It may develop large wounds at closer ranges and can be expected to pass clear through medium game on most shots. A word about recoil, the gun's kick. Pushing these heavier bullets by a lot of powder does generate noticeable recoil. This bar graph compares the recoil energy of the 4570, 444, 30-06, and 350 Legend. The calculated recoil energy for the cartridges shown assumes similar weight rifles. The 444 recoil is slightly greater than the 30-06, but less than the 4570. Recoil at this level is not pleasant for me when shooting from the bench to work up loads, and I place padding between the rifle's butt and my shoulder to keep from getting a sore shoulder and to help me squeeze off accurate shots. I don't notice that in the field when shooting at game. Marlin used a hard rubber butt plate on my rifle that I replaced with a quality recoil pad when I refinished the rifle. I suggest that rifle and cartridge combinations that generate less kick than the full power 444 loads will better serve new shooters. They will find recoil levels similar to that shown for the 350 Legend will help them avoid bad shooting habits associated with flinching. Handloaders may find lighter loads that reduce the 444's recoil, but most shooters report that the most accurate loads are near maximum velocity in this cartridge. Lighter hand loads will not shoot as flat and will develop less energy, but could be useful when reduced recoil is wanted.
We've looked at the design elements of the 444 Marlin and how it stacks up against other popular straight wall cartridges on paper. My personal experience over the last 33 years is that I have never lost an animal hit with the 444. Most deer-sized game drop where hit, and no animal hit in the vitals has traveled more than 50 yards. Today, I won't shoot water jugs or wet newspaper to estimate its performance on game. Instead, I'll share actual 444 Marlin results on medium and large game with you. Bullets from my broadside shots weren't recovered because they passed clear through, but I recovered a few bullets when I had less desirable shots.
Here's an example of 444 performance on white-tailed deer. This doe was walking away from me at an angle. The deer dropped at the shot, struggled to its feet, traveled about 15 feet, and collapsed. The 265 grain Hornady flat point bullet passed through the right hindquarter, shattering the femur into 7 pieces. The bullet expanded to an average 0.77 inches diameter, exited the thigh with a 3-inch hole, penetrated across the opposite leg that was extended forward and left a 3-inch hole there, and was recovered farther forward between the second and third ribs. The total penetration was 25 inches. The recovered bullet weighed 260 grains, 98% of its original weight. Here's an example of 444 performance on a whitetail buck. This buck was running towards me at a very slight angle. The deer dropped at the shot and expired. The 265 grain Hornady flat point bullet entered above the left shoulder, broke the spine, and continued on before coming to rest at the left hindquarter. The expanded bullet expanded to 0.86 inch diameter. The total penetration was 25 inches, and the recovered bullet weighed 244.6 grains, 92% of its original weight. Here's an example of 444 performance on greater kudu. I fired from a sitting position at this bull when it was broadside and slightly to my right and above me. The bullet that dropped the bull entered the right ribs and passed up to and into the opposite side on the spinal column. The bullet dropped at the shot, which would have soon resulted in death. A second mercy shot penetrated through the vital organs, causing the bull to expire immediately. I could recover the bullet jacket from the 265 grain Hornady flat point that entered the spinal column, but I couldn't pry out the lead core from inside the vertebrae. The mercy shot passed through and was not recovered, and I didn't measure total penetration of either bullet. You can see that this was a very large bull. It missed the record book measurement by only 1/8 inch on one side and 1/4 inch on the other side. It was roughly between an elk and a smaller moose in size.
You can search the internet and find many examples confirming the 444's successful use on medium deer-sized game and larger game, from big hogs through caribou, black bear, elk, moose, grizzly bear, large Japanese stags, and African game like kudu. Reality shatters the unfortunate myths. The 444 Marlin performs in the field as its designers intended. It's a great cartridge and rifle combination from medium to big game hunting at deep woods hunting ranges. I think that the 444 did not take off in popularity when it was introduced because the long-barreled fancy big magnum cartridges were all the rage then, not because the 444 failed in the field. It did. Since that time, cartridges have shrunk in size as shooters and hunters have realized what is needed to deliver the performance to harvest game. Now, the straight wall case cartridge regulations in many states are making hunters look at these cartridges. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this video helped dispel the myths and allowed you to appreciate the 444 Marlin.
That's why I think the 444 Marlin is the best straight wall cartridge rifle combination for big game woods hunting. It's designed for deep woods big game hunting. It's very accurate. The 444 is flat shooting over its design range. The 444 has a knockdown power for big game. It has a tolerable recoil level, and the 440 lever action is easy to carry, fast to get on target, and delivers a fast follow-up shot if needed. And it's a classic American hunting rifle. Ruger's reintroduction of the Marlin brand has many hunters eager for a fresh batch of 444s. I think that when you try the 444 in the field, you too will find out what many hunters have known for 60 years. Contact Marlin, send them an email or call them and ask them for new 444 rifles.